In this video, parents share experiences of giving birth at home. They talk about preparation for home birth, relationships with the midwives, and feelings about having their babies at home. One mom says being in her home surrounded by people who cared about her was important. Another suggests reading and doing some research to see whether home birth is right for you.
Having a home birth is something that you have to come to yourself, and you have to really feel like it's the right thing for you to do. I'd had a really wonderful supportive birth in the birth centre. I could kind of take that to the next step by having a home birth. The kind of midwifery care that you receive when you have a home birth is the real meaning of continuity of care. So a one-on-one care provider, a midwife. In my case, I chose to have two. I had the midwife who caught Lewis, and I also had a midwife who works in private practice, an independent midwife. And you have these amazing, hour-long antenatal sessions with them in your own home. They sort of get to know your family, your other children, your husband. At the beginning of the pregnancy, I saw a GP to have the routine antenatal blood tests, and I had a scan at 20 weeks. One of my midwives was in a collaborative arrangement with an obstetrician, and part of that has to do with me being able to claim a lot of the birth through Medicare. So I knew that there was obstetric consultation should it be required. So I'd also booked in to my nearest hospital and just informed them that these were the sort of approximate dates that I was due and that I was going to be birthing at home. So they were aware should I need to transfer in an emergency or a non-emergency situation, that I wasn't sort of turning up kind of the blue.
Part of me, I think, was probably a bit more nervous or hesitant about home birth. We'd had Lewis 2 years before at the birth centre, and that was a good experience, very simple, very easy, very quick. And I think after that, Naomi was quite keen for a home birth. Just seemed like the right thing to do, and the main thing was that it was what she wanted to do, and she was comfortable with it.
My husband was really supportive of a home birth. He felt supported by our midwives. He knew that they were highly trained professionals, and he was perfectly satisfied that they were able to deal with whatever situation might have eventuated. He was really informed about birth and about home birth. We'd done a lot of research, a lot of reading, spoken to a really wide number of people.
Edie was my third pregnancy, and I wanted something different to what I'd had previously with my previous pregnancies and births, which I'd had in the hospital setting. I wanted to be surrounded by my boys, my husband. I wanted people that cared about me, and not just people walking in and out of a room telling me how I should birth. That's what I wanted for my third pregnancy. We had a birth pool, and we moved the dining table and popped the birth pool there, and she was born in warm water with my husband present. She was born into my hands and my husband's hands, and that was it. It was the most beautiful experience of my life.
Giving birth at home was wonderful. It was, in some ways, such a normal experience. Being able to be in my own space, in a place where I feel comfortable. My labour was relaxed. One of my midwives was here with me for most of the day, and we sat on the floor and sat on cushions and read magazines and chatted to my husband, and sort of just had this lovely kind of indoor picnic while I breathed through contractions. And then when things got intense, I got to get into the birth pool and be surrounded. My husband, who I obviously completely trust, and felt supported by my midwives. I guess I was just so glad that they were here kind of going through this experience with me. And then to be able to get out of the birth pool straight onto my couch, they'd made a little nest for me with duvets and pillows, and to snuggle up and get nice and warm with this beautiful new baby and have these sort of few hours of just baby gazing. And then I went upstairs and got into my own bed, and I won't say I slept all night because I had a newborn baby. That doesn't really happen. But it was such a momentous experience, and yet such a lovely, normal experience. It just felt like it was a part of life.
For anyone that was thinking about home birth, I would suggest read up on what you were thinking about. There's so much online support, whether it be blogs, websites, YouTube even has some amazing home birth videos to look at and see if that's the sort of thing that you want to be involved in.
If you're having a water birth, you do need to make sure you know how to get that pool rigged up, how long it's going to take to fill, make sure you have that in place. You might need special hoses and attachments, and there's some practicalities to think of if you're going for a water birth. Be aware of what your partner wants, make sure everything is in place. You're there ready to do the practical things that she can't do and to offer, emotional support.
Now, since the birth, I know a lot more home birth women, but I only knew one or two people that had ever had a home birth before. And so I felt, I guess, a certain amount of pressure on me that were there people around me that thought that I was doing something really unsafe. I didn't feel that I was, but I felt I had a wondering.
Don't listen to people that are going to be negative about your experience, because their birthing experience, their birth history is going to be completely different to yours.
Home birth isn't for everyone, and I guess the advice I'd give though is that I think continuity of care is for everyone.
Postnatally, my midwife came to visit me a couple of times. She would give me a physical check to see if the baby was doing okay, mentally and physically, how I was doing.
My midwives stayed for quite a few hours after the birth to, for medical reasons, to make sure everything was fine with me and the baby, and then a midwife came first thing the next morning, and then one of my midwives would come every day for the first week, have a look at Rowan feeding, talk to me about how I was feeling about that. We'd have a chat about, maybe how much sleep I'd had the night before, how he was going with sleeping. They did all the sort of routine checks that they needed to do on him, check his heart, and that everything was developing properly, all of his reflexes were there. So every day for the first week they came, and then for the second week they came every second day. And then beyond that, they were on call for me 24 hours a day till 8 weeks. And I did call quite a few times, or they would call and check in with me and see how I was going. I think the most important thing is feeling completely supported and nurtured by your care provider if you're planning a hospital birth or a home birth.